Give everyone a few minutes to dive in, get comfortable, grab a cup of coffee, and then we'll chat a little bit more. And obviously, Ashley and I will tell you a little bit about our businesses, but this is not meant to be, too promotional on us. I think, we collectively get a lot of questions this time of year from brands of all calibers, sizes, with all kinds of goals around, how to just maximize their efforts, be smarter, not harder when it comes to marketing and branding. And so we just figured it was a good opportunity to link up and share a dialogue that might be helpful for everybody else. And our hope is that you all will just sort of walk away with some actionable tips and advice. And obviously, we'll talk a little bit about ourselves, but we both have boutique businesses in the luxury wedding, events, lifestyle, hospitality world. So we operate very similarly to a lot of you who are here with us today. And that boutique sort of sensibility is something that I think a lot of clients appreciate. We're not working with hundreds of clients a year, which means that we can do things like this. We can have conversations and hopefully give clients a real sense of personalized recommendations. So I also think that it's important to note that this is our specialty. So, we're not working in the tech field. You people are our people. So we're excited to be here and just chat a little bit. So I'm Natalie. I'm the founder of In Good Company PR. I am based in Boston, but we work with clients all over the globe. Everyone from, distinguished event planners to boutique properties, fine art photographers, floral designers, anyone's that really connected to the world of celebrations and hospitality. People that are really excited and creative in terms of celebrations and gatherings is the brands that we work with most frequently. And we provide PR and marketing support in a variety of capacities. We do everything from social media strategy to media outreach, event facilitation, brand collaborations, all the way to sort of business development, sales, holistic, marketing strategy. Nothing too groundbreaking, but we're really blessed that we've been able to do this for so many years, and to work with people like Ashley. A lot of times we get questions from clients saying, I am yearning to have a new brand identity, or I never created a brand identity, and now 10 years later I feel really lost because I don't know what that foundation is. And so we've been able to work with Ashley on a number of occasions, which has been a blessing. And so every piece of advice that Ashley has, take it and run with it, because she's very skilled and knowledgeable in this area. Ashley, you want to tell everybody a little bit about you and then we'll dive in?
Yeah, so I'm Ashley. I am the creative director and owner of Ashley and Malone. We specialize in branding and website design for wedding brands, interior lifestyle brands, all the way from strategy to design. What I love about working with Natalie is that I feel like our brands are kind of connected in some way because of our specialties. So oftentimes Natalie will say hey, you need branding first, and then we'll kind of start the process there. And then afterwards, kind of PR and marketing take over. So I feel like between our client base and kind of what we specialize in, they're very connected. And so I'm excited to see how we can kind of share how those two arms can work together and create something that you guys will be able to kind of start the process in on your own and really kind of take those skills and put them into your own brands.
Yeah. And I think, Ashley and I, right, we had kind of talked a little bit about what are people struggling with right now, above and beyond the fact that this year is going to be so incredibly taxing emotionally, professionally, physically on everybody. And so what are the ways that you can kind of cut through the noise and create brand visibility that actually feels true to yourself and your company and the way that you want it to grow in the next few years, right? Set the foundation in a positive way so that you can say yes to things that do bring you joy, but also be profitable and productive in those pursuits. And hopefully some of these sort of like brand marketing tips will help you find that clarity this year. So, for me, I always get the question like, the fundamentals of a great brand, particularly one that serves a really distinguished client. I think that would be a great place to start for us to just have a dialogue. I want to invite everybody, and I know Ashley does too. Please, even if you don't feel comfortable hopping on video, which is totally fine because most of us are probably in our pajamas. We were just saying, like, this is what happens.
I did my hair today.
Makeup and hair. So if you don't want to get on video, it's totally fine. But even if you have a question, pop it in the chat because we'll be able to see that. And we want this to be valuable for all of you. Yes. So the first question I kind of always get, and I'd love to chat because I think it's relevant for everybody, is what are those characteristics of a really strong brand? And what makes a very strong brand identity? And then I think, okay, so then you have a brand identity. What do you do with it? So Ashley, do you have any thoughts around the type of sort of like fundamental elements of like a really strong brand?
Yes. Well, I mean, I think we can start with like, it depends on like where we want to start because I feel like it's a very big, question. And one of the things that I feel like our clients struggle with the most is thinking with your audience in mind. So really thinking objectively when you're looking at your brand identity, how it's formulated, what types of fonts you're using, the overall design of things is such an important component that I think gets overlooked. I think in the wedding industry, especially, there's a lot of sameness that happens. So knowing who your competition is and really taking the time to align yourself differently, but thinking with your audience in mind. I think when you're starting out in your business, you really kind of rely on personal preferences within your own personal style. And that starts to become your brand, but you've kind of alienated your audience and who those people are. And I think that's one of the biggest things that business owners can do is to really think with their client in mind. We only get older and a lot of times our clients are younger than us, and that will likely never change, just industry specific for weddings. And so I think there's a lot of value in doing the work and figuring out who your clients are, what they're attracted to, and letting your work speak for your style opposed to necessarily your brand. Your brand should attract, your work can speak to your capabilities and what you do.
Well, yeah. And I think, what's a really interesting point that you mentioned is just understanding there probably are a lot of similarities and synergies between what you're drawn towards and what you sort of want to portray for your clients, right? The experience that you're pulled towards and the experience that you want to give is probably aligned in some ways, but there are nuances that are very different, right? The decision-making factors, the personal history behind your clients, the reasons why they're choosing A over B. And I think that honestly, that exploratory phase is something that I always find brands really don't appreciate as much as they should, because that insight is something that you can use in your marketing efforts and should be using in your marketing efforts. It's sometimes a little bit of an uncomfortable sort of exploration or exercise because it makes somebody like an owner of a company actually take themselves out of the picture, right?
Yes. It's really, really hard to do, like really hard.
Yeah.
So that's why it's one of those things that it's completely a mindset switch. And I have stats that we have taken from like 8 years of clients. And I can honestly say that the ones that think objectively about their brand and business are the ones that see the biggest growth. And that doesn't have to mean money. Like it can just mean like a better caliber of client, or working in the mindset of less is more. So I really do think it's like such a huge factor. And there's ways to do that too. And part of it is like, I don't know if you do this, Natalie, but like a competitive analysis.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people are scared. They know who their competition is. They don't sometimes want to recognize it, or they claim that they don't have competition. Well, I'm just myself, and you know what I mean? But I do think if you actually like sit there and you bring up the websites of say like 4 to 5 different competitors, you can start to notice what those similarities are. And so I think in your brand, you really want to distinguish what makes you different, and then how you can visually communicate that, so that when a potential client isn't, when they're looking for to hire someone, that they can tell the difference. They're not just like in a wander of, okay, well, these 3 people look the same. So, you know, it really comes down to another factor opposed to getting in touch with you.
Yeah. And I think you just made such a poignant observation, Ashley. And one thing that we always do when we onboard a new client is sort of go through that market analysis, because
Yeah.
that information is so critical for us to understand, okay, where does your brand actually fit into the landscape of
Yeah.
your not only competitors, your peers, your colleagues, your clients, right? Where
Yeah.
are they finding you? And so even if you don't work with a branding firm or a PR firm, doing that type of exercise every year, every few years, at moments of maybe like milestones or transitions in your
Yeah. That's
business
important.
is a really, really good idea to do, because it's ever changing, right? And the other part of it that I think is really interesting, for people, especially again, going back to this mindset of the 1% type client, the person that is going to truly not look at the price tag, but more so the craftsmanship, the approach, the personality, those other sort of intrinsic elements of a brand that they relate to. You also want to think about, it's not just the website, it's how are they taking that identity that the website is so beautifully portraying and bringing it over to all the other touch points. So the proposal, the services guide, all the way down to their stationery, the experience and the touch points that they have throughout that inquiry process.
Yeah.
That's another thing when you're talking about sort of competitive analysis, is I like to have our clients actually also look at, what is the communication style? What are the words that your competitors are using? So it's really, I think, a good idea to look at both the visual communication,
Mm-hmm.
the verbal communication, and then just sort of like the innate, like human to human approach and behavior of your competitors, to then see where are their gaps, right?
Yes.
What are your clients not receiving from other people that you would like to either deepen in or you'd like to improve, right? There's also the question of what exists out there that you don't want to cause a redundancy with. And
Yeah.
how can you change your positioning a little bit to make it feel like you really can own a little bit of, the market.
That's great. I love
Yeah.
that.
Um, I mean, Meg
I
put
know.
in
She's so
chat,
sweet.
Meg, you're so sweet. I mean, yeah, it can be one of those, experiments, and that sort of process that no one wants to do, right? But you can come out with such incredible insights that then you use in your marketing efforts, right? Like if you find through that discovery phase that your clients are really not jiving with that flowery language, for me as your PR partner, or in-house as your own PR partner, we're not going to use those words, and we're going to lean into a little bit more of a refined, professional, sort of straight to the point, logistical expertise versus other clients that are using more of their heart-centric place when they're buying or making that financial decision. Like, you want to be able to use that insight. And so there's so much that comes out of one of those discovery, like excavation phases.
I agree. I think another thing to consider too is being bolder than your competitors. So I think, like, Natalie, when you speak about copy and the voice of things, that's another area that I think is completely overlooked. You get a lot of the same language from lots of different websites that are in the same space as you. So if you can be bolder and more clear and more direct, I think it has the opportunity to convert a lot more clients than just referral based stuff too. So when you're bolder, you definitely stand out.
Yeah, and I love the word bold. I also think that the word conviction is often not used, and it should be,
Yeah.
right? Like this sense of, and maybe we're all to some degree um faking it till we make it, but we're not. Like, you have to find a sense of confidence in your own positioning, because nobody's going to trust you if you don't have that sense of confidence in yourself, what you offer, but also um, what you believe in as a human. Like, we're all business owners, but we're also all just humans, right? And the best types of working experience come together when you find other humans that share that like-minded sensibility. And so if you can be confident in a few parts of your positioning, it will allow you to attract that clientele much more organically, right, Ashley?
Yes, absolutely. And I think, but you have to do the work to understand who they are before you can speak to them. And I think that's a lot of getting out of that mindset of like, it's all me, me, me.
Yeah.
Actually, your brand has very little to do with
To do
you.
with
Like,
you.
yes, which is hard for a lot of people because I think like when we got started 8 or 9 years ago, it was all about
Yeah.
the people. Like, it was the only thing you did was you kind of built these personal brands because it was really quite new. And so
Mm.
things have changed a lot because the market is entirely saturated. And for those reasons, that kind of marketing push and change has really adapted and branding. And I think really changed the marketplace for kind of those smaller boutique firms. So, yeah, thinking differently about your brand.
And I also do think that the brands that have sort of true longevity, right? All of you on here are looking to have a sense of like legacy in your market, to be able to thrive, not only just for this year, right? You're not thinking short term, you're thinking long term. And what I see, at least with the brands that I've come to admire so much, is that they not only have that perspective, right, that's rooted in sort of insight, understanding where they fit in, and what they're bringing to the world, right, but also consistency, a level of consistency that people can actually follow, so that it's not constantly changing. You're not feeling like you're on a roller coaster with a brand that they're just following the trends or anything like that. I mean, I think that a level of consistency can lead to trust. So when we talk about marketing, it's making sure that the messages and the visuals and your efforts on platforms like Instagram, yes, but also blogging, podcasting, email marketing, in person partnerships, it's consistent with those higher goals that really relate back to your client, and puts them at the epicenter of things. And if you can create consistency, no matter where a client is sort of finding you, people will be able to trust you a lot quicker. And by the time they even inquire, they really understand what you stand for and what matters to you and what kind of impact you want to leave on the world and on your customers and your clients. And so that's another element that I think can sometimes get overlooked, because there's so many people in this industry and
Yes.
everyone's trying to just keep up with the change that's happening. And I think that if people can just sort of step back a little bit and not feel so pulled to just constantly be keeping up, they will find their own very natural groove. And their clients will be able to sustain that for them.
I totally agree. Consistency is like the key to everything.
So
It really is.
it is. It
Yes.
is. Because it's so clear to identify it. You can
Yeah.
see when brands are being influenced by external sort of powers or influences, and how that has changed either the way that they're communicating, the way they're offering services, their service like philosophy. You can see it change. And then you, as a customer or a client who's investing a significant amount of money and effort in that brand, you say, well, I feel left out now because I wasn't a part of that change, right? And so consistency is very important, to me at least. And I also think that, again, we're talking about the luxury market, and I use that term loosely, but a market of clients who are very particular about the brands that they support and the reasons why they support that brand. They want to have that sense of trust and expertise, but a brand that they can count on, really,
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And that's I think tied to the value, right? So if they can
Absolutely.
count on you, then they're willing to pay more for your services. And you kind of spoke to something about, like, we talked about competitors and getting kind of inundated with seeing what everybody else is doing. And I think it's a struggle for a lot of people. And so my recommendation, and if that's something that you like internally struggle with as a business owner, that you should be aware of your competitors and check in on them, whether it's quarterly or yearly, just to kind of get a sense of what's happening. But I also think it's important to, if that bothers you, to not follow them, because if you don't follow, you won't be influenced in those kind of daily decisions, and you won't always feel, like you said, like you're trying to catch up, like, oh my God, they just posted this, so I need to do that too. But really what they did could have nothing to do with what your clients want. So I think that's important too, if you're in a creative space and a creative industry, to kind of remove that extra point of inspiration if it's not inspirational any longer.
Yeah, if it's not productive to you, that
Yeah.
makes total sense to me.
Yeah.
I also think that there's, you know, I don't know, Ashley, if you get this question a lot, but I think in this industry particularly, it can be really, really difficult to understand what your own sort of identity is when it comes to, you know, style and sort of like the aesthetic part of it, which I think people struggle with a lot, because the aesthetics sort of drive all the other decisions that you're making on a channel like Instagram, or you know, content, or your website, or even down to the things that you're wearing when you're working with your clients,
Sure.
right? Do you have any tips about like how to understand, okay, where, you know, taking the insights that you have in terms of where you fit in the competitive landscape, and then saying like, okay, how do I take that and then marry it with something that feels really reflective of the things that my clients are going to be drawn towards?
Yeah. So if are we speaking like purely like brand identity, like
Yeah.
how things look and feel? So I think an important thing to think of is when it comes time for like a logo. So like your logo identity, your plain word mark, classic is probably the most powerful thing that you can do for your business, because stylistically that shouldn't change too much. What you can do in order to infuse personality and difference is think of color. Color is, I think, one of those things that people are so afraid of, but it can be that point of difference that make things feel identity wise really quite different than competitors. A lot of people in the luxury space lean on black and white. And I do think it's beautiful, but infusing, even if it's just a touch of color, can be something that feels memorable, and you really want to kind of enhance that memorable quality when people are looking at your brand. So I think color is a great way to do that. View your work as your biggest piece of style. So when you want to bring in style and flair, and if you have kind of like a signature look, photography is one of the best places that you can invest in. And I think fonts too, like fonts are a great way to build personality
Yeah.
into the design and typography. And one of the sources of inspiration that I encourage people to do is look outside of the industry. In terms of inspiring design, e-commerce brands are probably the top tier of risk takers and, you know, just products and things that are being done differently. So if you can kind of inspire to look at that for inspiration, even if it's with your client in mind, you can do something really captivating. That could be something really small, but it definitely allows you to stand out and kind of define yourself differently.
Yeah, and I love that, Ashley. I also think that taking inspiration on that same vein, it's never too late to do this type of, you know, like exploration for
Yeah,
your brand. You could have a beautiful brand that you love dearly, and do this type of exploration. And maybe you're not finding that it's the aesthetics that need to necessarily change, but maybe it's the messaging, maybe it's the
sure.
tone, maybe it's the sort of more so like those, again, those experiential ways that you're actually working with your clients that you want to change, that can then bring like a very kind of like holistic identity to the world. The one thing I will say is I really love when people, like you were saying, get outside the wedding world and don't be afraid to embrace some of the meaning behind why you created your business, right? So lean on some of those personal anecdotes also, and then say, how do those relate to the type of client that I want to be working with? And are there synergies? Are there parallels between those? So that inspiration could come from, you know, the typography on one of your favorite old albums that your parents always played when you were a child, and you
Sure.
loved that typography, and now you're in the entertainment business, or now you're in the photography business, but you still love that typography and you think it relates to that older, more discerning clientele that you're trying to attract, right? Like there could be ways that there are parallels that aren't always obvious, right? And so I think what I'm hearing from you is like, it's never too late to do this type of exploration, to
Yes.
understand that your brand is continuing to evolve, but it should be rooted in insight in terms of like how it's positioned in the rest of the market. And that insight is going to come from just like doing a little bit of this soul searching.
Yeah, and things can adapt too. I think,
Yeah.
you know, like if it's not working, fix it. Like try something new. It doesn't have to be, I think obviously consistency is important, but like it doesn't have to be as concrete as like this is it and it's never going to change, you know, like
Yeah.
brands change every few years, and that's why I think if you at least have the foundation and the consistency of the logo design, and that's kind of that piece that stays with your brand, then you'll always have something that's timeless, and then you can dress it up and kind of play around with some of those other components that are a bit bolder and a bit more even edgy, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
I love edgy.
Yeah, me too.
Don't you love when a client's like, I just want edgy. Give
Edgy.
me edgy.
Natalie, I always get clients asking, like, okay, I have this great brand. I have an abundance of clients. I'm super proud of the work that I'm doing. What's next? I have no time to do anything else other than service my clients. Like, how do I get on the lists? How do I get my work published? All of those things. I know it's probably a loaded question, but
No, it's
I'm interested to
totally
hear like
fair. I
what's
mean,
next, you
yeah,
know?
it's totally fair. You spend so much time and effort and financial resources like diving into this part of your brand, and you want it to live. You want it to get out there into the world. What I would say is for someone that is on a shoestring timetable, if you will, like they don't have much bandwidth personally. They don't have a marketing team. They don't have anybody in-house. Maybe they're a one woman or one man show. How do they allocate their time the best way? I would say that the future brands that have sort of that sense of longevity and the brands that are establishing trust with their clients are those who are leaning on content a little bit more.
Okay.
I know that we've talked a little bit about this offline, but either the written word, video, audio, any way that you can start to cultivate an ongoing relationship with your clients is so impactful, because it would allow them, again, to go on a journey with you as your business changes, as their lives change, so that you can keep in touch, right? We all do this top of mind sort of, we have this top of mind experience with brands that we love. For me, I don't feel comfortable on video. So video, you will never see me starting a YouTube or a Vimeo channel. It's just not going to happen. Sorry. But I love to write. And so I found a way to keep in touch with people that were meaningful to me in terms of clients and colleagues through email marketing. Now, email marketing doesn't have to be a sales push. It could be a simple, beautiful, short message to people about what you're experiencing in your craft, what you're experiencing in your personal life, if that's an area that you feel comfortable with. I also think that, if you can commit to something on a somewhat regular basis, that is better than not doing anything or doing all of it. Okay. So I want everybody to think of, like, Natalie's not asking me to be on all the platforms and do all the things all the time. I want everybody to find one medium, one channel that they feel like they are having a back and forth dialogue with people on, and lean into that. Because that's going to be the way that you sort of keep in touch with them and keep them engaged. We can no longer rely just on media to, like, fuel our brands. We have to do it ourselves. It's just, with e-commerce, like, people want agency over the information that they're getting. They're no longer flipping through a digital or a print issue of a magazine and lingering over it, over a glass of wine or coffee like they did a decade ago. It's just not happening. And the media, their agenda is changing as well. And so unless you are a brand that has a lot of financial backing or a product that can be easily sort of integrated into editorial, it's really, really hard to then just rest on media alone. And so I would say, when it comes to the list, because I know everybody's very concerned about the list, I think those editors are really looking for brands that, again, have a perspective in the world and are doing their own thing really, really well and connecting with people in their own way on a regular basis. If you take a look at any of those lists, increasingly every single year, you can see the change in the people that are topping those lists. Like, they have something, a level of ownership that maybe they didn't have the year before, right? They're starting a podcast, or they, they have an entertaining shop now as part of their brand, right? Like, there are things in their greater umbrella of a brand that are working for them that they're not relying on anybody else to create but themselves. And they're doing it because they're taking the insight from their clients and saying, okay, well, how can I connect with them on a deeper level? So that's a long answer to the quick answer, which is find a way to connect with your clients on a regular basis, whatever that regular basis means to you. It could be monthly, bi-monthly, even quarterly, if it's impactful and meaningful, and find like a method that actually jives with you. Don't do it if it feels uncomfortable to you. try to lean into something that doesn't feel as foreign. And if you need help, like, you have good people around you. Ask your colleagues, what do you think? Where do you think I would be, spending my time wisely? Like, what do you think I can do? And asking those questions will sometimes give you insights and answers that you totally glossed over on your own. Also, asking your clients,
Yeah, I was just
like,
gonna say
what
that.
would resonate with people that are in your circle. Like, I'm thinking about starting or doing more podcasting because I love to speak and I really love the idea of sharing ideas. Do you listen to podcasts, or do you have any email newsletters that you love, or do you even follow brands on Instagram and read their captions, or are you just looking at stories? Like, all of that, just ask the question and you will find the answer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good source. I think your clients are an amazing source.
Of inspiration and information.
Yes.
And I think we always gloss over them.
Yeah, I agree.
Does anybody have any questions? I know we wanted to keep this short and sweet and valuable, but we're so appreciative that everybody joined us. Oh, someone here.
You said? I know you want to.
It keeps going out.
Oh,
I know.
well,
you can also chat anything too.
Yeah, you can chat. Otherwise, you can always connect with Ashley and I. Obviously, we're on Instagram. We have our own websites. Happy to tell you a little bit more about our services if anybody is interested. I personally, like I said, I have a marketing memo. It's our free once monthly email marketing little digest. It'll come to your inbox. Ashley, do you have any sort of services or sort of really good things for people that are saying like, wow, I really need to have help with that excavation, or I have a brand, I'm thinking about a brand refresh? Like, can you tell everybody a little bit about how you work?
Yeah, so typically we work in a full service capacity. So with clients who are doing kind of strategy, branding, website design, and then the collateral marketing pieces.
Yep.
However, we do have something cool, which is kind of brand consulting. So we'll do it for some clients here and there where it's like a power hour or two, and we just kind of dive into those details. That's really key for that competitive analysis, to get a completely objective view about what it is that I'm seeing, and then giving you steps on how you can kind of move that going forward. So that's kind of an entry level option. We are releasing website templates coming soon, which is pretty exciting.
Awesome.
I haven't really shared that with anyone, but they're different. So it's kind of not what you see out there. It's for kind of that mid-tier range where like you're not starting out, but you're not like at the cusp of the top. You know what I mean? Like we have some really cool things planned for that. But Instagram DMs are great. So I'm always available. I'm like you, I'm not a big story video gal, but I love a quick conversation. So totally. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them there. I just saw one pop up from Lauren. She's asking for stationery companies. I really love Copper Willow. They're based in California. They can do really high-end stuff, which I love, and really beautiful papers. So they're kind of like my luxury go-to if you're looking for like really beautiful stationery. Ribbon and packaging is a tricky one. I feel like there's not a good local company that I'd say really does it well. I would have to kind of get back to you on that one. And yeah, from start to finish, those are really important pieces. I think stationery is sometimes overlooked, but because of COVID, it has gone to the bottom of some lists because people aren't seeing as many people in person. But I do think even using mail as a tool to connect is a really cool thing. So having your stationery be beautiful is important.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love that. And, just to kind of piggyback, very similar to Ashley, we work with most of our clients in a full service capacity, but we do take on consulting throughout the year. So we'll do power hours as well.
Yeah.
And that will kind of be something that people can take advantage of if they are needing that sort of short-term strategic counsel with an actionable sort of rubric to use, 6 to 9 months down the line. So something that will actually give them a little juice for the squeeze. And we're booking those out starting in May. I know it's crazy. It is so wild that this industry, I am so unbelievably proud of this industry and how much enthusiasm there is from every corner of this creative market. Like everybody is feeling really, really good about this year, about next year, about the future. And that is, as someone that has worked in this industry for 8 years, I am so happy to see that light and that flame be sort of like reborn with people after such a challenging period of time.
Yes.
I know you probably feel the same way, Ashley.
Yeah. I think we work a lot in the wedding space, and it's been really nice to see people rebounding and in such a positive way. And I think obviously like the interior design industry is another one that like just absolutely like went wild. But I actually see that a lot of creative wedding professionals kind of tapped into that too, like
Oh yeah.
style. And we're like, well, I design beautiful spaces for weddings, but I can actually design beautiful spaces for my clients in their homes too. And I
Yeah,
saw
and
a
that's
lot of
what,
people kind of transition, which was cool.
but it all felt like there was an underlying sense of continuity, right? Like it
Sure.
wasn't a
Yeah.
diversion from what their meaning of their company was, which is
Yes.
so nice to see. And I feel very encouraged for this year. And I hope that this conversation was valuable for everybody and maybe gave you a little bit of extra zip or pep in your step for a Tuesday. Thank you everybody so much. We'll follow up with a quick email just with our information and how to get in contact with us. And if you reach out, obviously you'll get first priority because you are here and we'll answer any questions for you. We're two very sort of, friendly, approachable people, and we sort of welcome the communication. So thank you everyone for being here. And if you find these helpful, I'd love to do more of them. I know Ashley will come back and do a larger chat with us too. So thanks everybody for being here, and have a great week.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye everybody.
Bye.